Today I want to talk about 5 tools that I use to rebloom my orchids consistently and regularly. The first 4 of these tools have to do with light and temperature, because light and temperature are fundamental to being able to rebloom orchids. First, I want to talk about light. There are 2 tools that I use to bring my orchids more light. And the first is artificial lights. I use both LED and fluorescent lights. It really doesn't matter which one you choose as long as you use full spectrum bulbs. By supplementing my orchids with both natural and artificial light, I've greatly increased the quantity of orchids that I am able to grow. I can grow cattleyas and dendrobiums, which are considered highlight orchids, and also paphiopedilums and phalaenopsis orchids, which are considered low light orchids. But my artificial lights really increases the amount of light that my orchids receive. Along with the artificial lights, I also use a timer. A timer is key to making the most out of the lights. This is the timer that I use and I like. It's put out by Century, and you just plug it in, and I have a power cord that I plug in here with multiple outlets, and I plug all of my lights into this timer, and it just makes it so that I can have my lights turn on at a specific time and turn off at a specific time, and I don't have to worry about it. This one's really easy to select the amount of time that or when the light goes on, and this helps me to be able to regulate the amount of light that my orchids receive with the season. So in the winter time, I can change it with this dial right here so that they receive a little bit less light, and then in the summertime I can increase the amount of daylight that my orchids receive. So those are the 2 tools that I use to increase the light that my orchids receive. Now let's talk about temperature. The first thing that I use is a humidistat. And the humidistat, not only does it tell me the amount of humidity that my orchids receive, it tells me how much humidity is in the room right now. So right now it says that my relative humidity is 55%, and the low humidity in the last 24 hours that my orchids received was 54%, and the high was 73%. But in addition to telling me the humidity, the humidistat also gives me the last 24 hours of temperature, and you can set it to either Fahrenheit or Celsius. Right now I have mine set to Fahrenheit, and it says that my current temperature is 68 degrees Fahrenheit. The low was 59, which is good because that means I got a 10-degree drop in temperature at night, which many orchids like, and then the high over the last 24 hours is 70 degrees. So it's really important to be able to track the temperature that your orchids receive, because temperature helps to initiate blooming, especially during the winter time. And also some orchids, I should say many orchids, are really sensitive to temperature drops. Some dendrobiums will lose their leaves if they get temperatures that are too low. So along with that, I have this seed mat, and I plug it in the winter time, and it just keeps the roots warmer during the winter time when this room cools down. It doesn't get hot is what I want to say. So it gets between 70 and 85 degrees, or 24 to 30 degrees Celsius, and it just helps the roots to stay a bit warmer if you're growing warm growing orchids. And it doesn't heat up the whole room, it's just kind of the it just increases the ambient temperature right around your orchids. So this room can get pretty cool in the winter time, and so if for my warmer growing orchids, the seed mat helps to keep those orchids a bit warmer. All right, so now for my fifth and final tool that I use to rebloom orchids, I use fertilizer. And fertilizer will just help to ensure that your orchids are getting both the micro and macro nutrients that your orchids need to successfully bloom. Right here, this is a 3-pack that I use, and you can use them at different times of the year depending on what is happening with your orchids. So this first one helps to stimulate flowers, and the second one helps to stimulate root and leaf growth, and this final one focuses on root growth. So this is a good one to use right after you finish potting your orchids. But if you just want to simplify things, you can get just a balanced fertilizer, and that would say something like 777, and that just means that the macronutrients of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium are all given in a balanced percentage. It's also important that along with macronutrients, that the fertilizer says that it is a complete fertilizer, and that just means that it also contains trace elements and nutrients that your orchid needs, such as iron and magnesium, calcium, other trace elements like that. So there you have it. Those are the 5 tools that I use to rebloom my orchids. And again, the light and the outlet, my light and my timers, those help to increase the amount of light that my orchids receive, and the timer makes it so that I don't have to think about it. I could leave for the weekend and I would know that my lights are still turning on at the same time every day and turning off. The seed mat and the humidistat, and actually I have more than one humidistat placed around in this orchid room, and it just helps me to know what temperatures my orchids are receiving. And then the seed mat helps me to keep my warm growing orchids from getting too cold, and fertilizer helps me to know that my orchids are receiving the nutrients they need to properly bloom. And I hope that these tools help you to rebloom your orchids consistently and regularly. I'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, then please subscribe and like this video. Thank you.